Hey everyone, and welcome. We've put together something special for you today. This is a re-edited highlight from the Sip&Talk podcast, and it's all thanks to our sponsor, Mickey. The goal here is to take a really fascinating but kind of complex cultural conversation and just break it down to its core ideas. So let's dive right in. So we're kicking things off with this question because, honestly, it really gets at a feeling a lot of us have probably had online, right? You post something simple like a holiday greeting, and all of a sudden you look down and the comment section is just a war zone. It really makes you stop and think, wow, when did just celebrating something get so complicated? And that question is the perfect lead-in to our first section. Let's talk about one of the most reliably heated debates you'll see online every single year. What do we actually call the New Year that's celebrated at the turn of the traditional lunisolar calendar? Okay, so here's the real heart of the argument. If you go online and say, Happy Lunar New Year, you'll get people accusing you of trying to erase the holiday's Chinese roots. They call it de-Sinicization. But if you say Happy Chinese New Year, you've got people from other cultures, like Vietnam or Korea, who feel left out because they celebrate it too, but with their own unique traditions. So you're kind of stuck in the middle. This chart does a great job of breaking it all down, because it shows this isn't just about what words you use. If you look at the Chinese New Year side, the core claim is all about origin. It started in China, so the brand name should stick. In the psychology behind that, it's often an anxiety that their culture is being eroded or even stolen. Now flip over to the Lunar New Year supporters. For them, it's all about respecting that the holiday has gone local in different places. It's about wanting diversity and inclusion. And you can see this isn't just a random internet fight. Major outlets like the New York Times and The Economist have weighed in, linking these arguments to bigger ideas like nationalism and how culture spreads. So all this fighting over a name, a tradition, a piece of heritage, what's really going on underneath it all? Well, there's actually a term for this. Let's get into our next section and define the key concept that's really fueling all these debates. And here it is. It's called cultural interpretation rights. And what is that? It's basically the struggle over who has the authority to tell a story. Who gets to explain a tradition? Who gets to claim ownership of a piece of history or even a type of food? Once you grasp this idea, everything starts to click. You realize these arguments aren't just about names. They're really about power and identity. And, this whole struggle over cultural interpretation, it's not just about the New Year. Not by a long shot. It's actually a huge theme that's playing out all across East Asia, turning what should be shared heritage into a real modern-day battleground. I mean, just look at the fierce debate over kimchi. For South Korea, kimchi is absolutely a core part of their national heritage. It's even recognized by UNESCO. But from China's perspective, their own pickled vegetable, pao sai, is a much broader category. They see the kimchi made by the Korean ethnic minority within China as just one part of their country's diverse food culture. And what started as a seemingly boring dispute over an international food standard, well, it blew up into a proxy war over who really owns the story of kimchi. And you see the exact same pattern with traditional clothing. South Korea views its hanbok as a totally unique, independently evolved dress. But China looks at it and points to the historical influence of their hanfu from the Ming Dynasty. And they also see the hanbok worn by the Korean ethnic minority in China as part of their own cultural tapestry. This whole tension was on full display for the world to see during the 2022 Beijing Olympics opening ceremony. Okay, so it might be really tempting to look at all this and think, this seems like just an issue in Asia, but it's not. This exact same struggle, this fight over who owns a story and who gets to tell it, has a huge and maybe even more complicated counterpart in the West. So let's shift gears and head over to the United States, because over there, the battle for cultural interpretation rights looks a little different. It's less about the ancient origins of something and way more about modern representation, cultural appropriation, and what people call political correctness. And Hollywood is ground zero for this debate since it exports culture to the entire planet. For a long time, the big issue is whitewashing, right? Casting white actors in roles that were clearly not white. But now you see a backlash to what some people call woke culture. Think about the huge debates around changing the race of a well-known character, like in The Little Mermaid. The thing is, because Hollywood is so influential, these arguments that happen in America don't stay in America. They ripple out and end up shaping how the whole world sees history and even beauty standards. But here's where it gets really, really interesting. This whole debate is now moving beyond movies and into the technology that's literally shaping our future, AI. Just think about it. If an AI model is trained mostly on data that comes from Western cultures with Western values, then it's going to end up exporting that specific worldview in every answer it gives. You could argue this is the highest level of this fight for interpretation rights, when the very logic we use is being quietly shaped by one dominant culture. All right, so we've gone from New Year's greetings and food fights all the way to Hollywood casting and even artificial intelligence. We've seen this dynamic pop up everywhere. So that brings us to our final section. How should we even think about all this? What's a good framework for understanding culture in the world today? When you really get down to it, every single one of these conflicts boils down to this one powerful question. Is culture a wall? Something that needs to be defended to protect its purity, even if that means it might stagnate? Or is culture more like open source code, something that can be shared, remixed, and modified by anyone, allowing it to grow and evolve in ways we can't even predict? This really is the central question for our super connected world. And hey, before we sign off, I just want to give a huge thank you to Mickey. They sponsored this whole re-edit, and we really couldn't have put this special explainer together for you without their support. So if this got you thinking and you want to hear the full, in-depth conversation, all you have to do is subscribe to the Sip&Talk podcast. And definitely don't forget to check out Mickey's amazing travel channel. We've put the link right there for you in the description below. Thanks so much for watching.